We have royal consultant Alastair Bruce with us now, an officer of arms to the Queen, we should say now the King. He is also a royal commentator and knows more about the royals than basically anyone we know. And by the way, he is the only journalist to ever have had a conversation with the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, as a reporter for the BBC. Alastair, so great to have you here.
It's great to be here too.
And I must say, we got quite that dashing picture from you at the last moment. We were able to bring that up, and it's exactly what we have been watching, the same beautiful dress, the same position, the same duties that we have been watching other men like yourself carry out today. Describe to us that role that you had with the Queen and what your duties were, and as you watch everything unfold today, just what it means to you.
Well, we're all very moved at the loss of the Queen. She was a giant in a very slight frame, and serving her as one of her officers of arms, I was very often leading her procession when she entered Parliament. She was wearing the crown, and the idea of the dignity of her and the way she carried out her role as head of state, not just of the United Kingdom, but of Canada and many other nations too. She did it with such utter style and determination and courtesy. She always had time for everybody, even when I had the privilege of having that conversation with her about her coronation. And we had a wonderful conversation about how difficult it is to wear a crown. And in fact, the very crown that we had and we were talking about is the one that she wore in 1953. And it will be placed upon her coffin here in Westminster Hall when she lies in state in a few days' time. It will be very moving for me after the joy she had talking about the crown and the difficulty of holding your neck still when you're reading the speech. And she said, if you put your head forward, your neck will break. And it will be at the centre of our respect and honour to our sovereign in a few days' time.
What's incredible is you just broke a little news for us. We did not know that indeed that was absolutely 100% going to be the crown that would set on top of her coffin. What a symbol of her life, of her reign. You clearly know more about that crown, just as much as she knew about that crown. As you look back at your time with her, you were the only one to have a conversation with her for that documentary on the BBC. I'm going to ask you, I know you're very humble about things, but why do you think you were able to get that conversation, Alastair? Because she was so private and so mysterious, yet very familiar to many people, but very private, especially when it came to conversations. I know we don't say interview, but conversations.
I think the Queen recognised that I was absolutely obsessed with this really esoteric part of how our nation expresses itself in symbols and the stories behind them. And she was involved in her legacy in the last years of her life. And those symbols will be used again, because this is the only nation left in the world that has a coronation for its head of state. And we will crown the king. And so she was able to bring such authority to the symbols. And actually, she brought authority to anything she did just by being herself. And it was her humility that was the real strength. And I think people responded to that. She never did anything for herself. Most people go into public life or become famous and see how they can gain advantage for themselves. The Queen never did that. In fact, Prince Philip once said at the beginning of her reign, they went on these tours around the world, and particularly the realms and the Commonwealth. And people came out cheering as though they were the Beatles. This is before the Beatles. And he said, if we'd allowed any of that to go to our heads, we would never have come down from the cloud.
Wow.
And the Queen always knew that when people were cheering her, they were cheering the office she had the privilege of carrying. And she has now laid down, and it's been picked up by her son, the King.
So, Alastair, you knew her in such a personal and intimate way. When it came down to really letting her guard down, letting her crown down in private, who would be the person that she could really be everything to? Maybe even just completely raw. Would it have only been Philip?
I would say Prince Philip and herself. You see, when you are queen or monarch, it's a very lonely place to be. Leadership is lonely. I know that from the army. You know, you have to separate yourselves from everybody who you lead. And that loneliness, I think, can be tough. Now, this is difficult for people nowadays, but the Queen was profoundly faithful to her belief in God. And I think where she felt reassured by that, and I'm sort of feeling it through the process of the funeral that's coming, I think if you're Queen and you've been it for 17 plus years, there is always a place where you're ordinary, and it's before God. And I think she found that very helpful.
That's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I know that she kept journals. She had her private time. She would read letters till the very final days. She would read her letters. She would make notes. She would try to respond to certain people. Did you ever have a chance to witness that or know about that? Did she enjoy that? Did that give her some fulfillment in ways maybe she couldn't talk publicly? Could she personally have the old school tradition of feeling really great through a written letter or a note?
I think she lived in a world of written letters. She was that generation. She certainly didn't know how to do emails like you and me.
Although I heard she texted her grandkids. She got a cell phone just for that, is that right?
I'm going to say somebody got it ready for her and she pressed a button. I mean, I remember my Queen with such affection, but I never see her as ever having been an IT expert. Okay. But I know that if you come from that generation, she had such a beautiful turn of phrase too. And she did write a lot. And her diary every night, which we won't see now probably for 30, 50 years, the last page was probably only filled in the night she went to bed before the day she died, almost. And I think it'll be fascinating. It won't probably say too much about what she thought about this or that, because she always held that to herself. But she saw the best in everybody. She made everybody feel a little bit better. And you know, she had a family, like we all do, and families are complicated. Yet what she recognized is that her family wouldn't have faced the challenges the world have thrown at them if they weren't descended from her. And I think that probably gave her a great sense of responsibility and anxiety for each of them, and hoping that they'd all find their path. Because it's jolly tough being thrown into that historic and hereditary world, and to try and live up to that and find your route.
I think all of us don't necessarily appreciate how much she took on. You think, oh, the Queen has everything and she's taken care of and she's provided for. But when you think about really what she represented and what she had to do, and on a daily basis, I can tell you in this business, we all deal with anxiety and we all deal with it in different ways. It's interesting you use that word. You wouldn't see Queen Elizabeth II ever, we would never think she would go through a period of anxiety. So when she did, how did she deal with that? Was it straight to God? Was it straight to the Bible? Or was she just so rock solid that she just powered through it?
I can't speak with authority, but I did witness the fact that as Commander-in-Chief or the head of the armed forces, we all, I'm a soldier, declare our loyalty to the Crown, and that was to her during her reign. So any soldier from any of her realms who was injured or wounded or killed, the news came to her first.
Wow.
Now you imagine if you're a mother, a grandmother and a great-grandmother, and these young men and women who've gone out in your name to fight on the instructions of your government, elected by all of them, but you're the one who gets told. And I've seen when one of her equerries, her PAs, have come up to her and told her something, and then she's carried on walking up the stairs. And I think that walk and that knowledge must have been quite heavy to carry.
And when you think of the death of those men and women that fight for a country and how she had to handle that, and then you look at just personal crisis she had to deal with, scandals. The United States, of course, follows the royals, loves the royals, and I don't want to put you in any sort of uncomfortable position, but I think we do want to know, when you think of the death of Diana, when you do think of King Charles III, the extramarital affair, when you think of Prince Andrew most recently and that scandal, How do you think she dealt with that? How she processed that? How, among everything else, that was personal for her, right? That's her family. How do you think?
Well, I don't think I can possibly give anything because I don't know. And I think that she just always knew that what mattered was that she had the duty to be the absolutely robust and steady head of state with the keel deep in the rough waters of time. And she continued through every storm, and she gave the United Kingdom a real sense of a constant, like the North Star in the night. And it is that giant about her in this very small frame that we are going to deeply miss, but which we know she's passed on in so many ways to her son, our king.
How is he going to do? Can he fill his mother's shoes? Does he have to create his own pair of shoes? What will he take from her?
Of course he has.
What will he take from her? What will he do that's different?
Every monarch is themselves to be successful. So you can't be a previous monarch and be successful. In 1714, we changed our monarch from the Stuarts to the Hanoverians. They came over from Germany. Everyone thought there'd be a disappointment. There was endless disappointments. Every time there was going to be an heir. But each of them in their own way found their moment. And of course, the trick is you come into your own when you take on the role. And the king has already deeply impressed many people by the manner and the dignity with which he has acknowledged the death of his mother and immediately taken on those constitutional duties. In those really difficult times, to come up with words for the state, for his privy councillors, for Parliament. He's always having to put himself in a position where he sets his emotions to one side and yet leads. And I think he's doing a wonderful job. And I honestly think, let's give him the chance, because throughout history, he's carrying on this golden thread through the tapestry of time. And he has to lead that on through the fibers that come and form themselves in what the future is going to bring. And he's watched his mother do precisely that for over 70 years.
One final question. When you talk about the future and his duty, he also has a family and a personal side that he must handle and move forward with so much change with Harry and Meghan Markle, leaving royal duties, royal life. But for the first time yesterday, we saw the Fab Four. We saw the brothers together with their wives. Symbolic? Did that send a message? Is this out of respect for the Queen?
I simply don't know. All I know is...
But what do you think? Is it a good sign?
Well, all I know is that he is a father, and he has 2 sons, and he'll love them equally. And he has a bigger family now to love, and that's the kingdoms that he has taken on. And he will find his compass rose, and he will guide his ship, lonely though it is, with whatever support he can gain from those around him. And I wish him well.
Thank you, Alastair. I appreciate your time so much. We'll have to talk again.
Please.
A conversation, not an interview.
Maybe not in a howling gale at the top of a London building.
Hey, it wouldn't be London without the wind,
that's
right?
That's true. Well, it could be. It could be with rain. Could have the rain and fog.
Thank you, Alastair.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.